Everybody. I'm Jason with my office help, and welcome to the show. This is What's on Your Mind with Jason, and my special guest this evening is none other than Dan Antonelli with Kick Charge Creative. How awesome is that? Hello, Dan. Welcome to the show.
What's up, brother? How you doing, pal?
I'm doing great. How's the weather in New Jersey tonight?
It's nice.
It's
It's
nice.
warm but not too crazy. So I'm
Yeah,
enjoying the last bits of summer. As a cyclist, I like this weather. So I'm not a fan of the cold weather. So it's all
yeah.
good.
Enjoy the rest of it. I'm here in the southern part of Illinois, so we're like 6 hours south of Chicago, and I'm getting a message. The Audi is echoing. We're still getting a little bit of echo. It sounds like, Dan. Thanks, Tom. I appreciate that. But yeah, so we are in southern Illinois, and it was like 107 degrees today, so it's nice and hot. But yeah. Hey, Tom, let me know if you keep hearing the echoing. I appreciate the message, by the way. So, Dan is with Kick Charge Creative. Dan, tell us a little bit about your business and what you
Sure. I
do.
run a branding agency here in New Jersey. We have about 24 people now, I think. This year, we'll probably brand about a little over 200 home service companies. We've been doing it
Wow.
for about I'm almost 30 years into this. When I started in 95. So I think it's 28 years. And it's been a heck of a ride. So I really love what we do. And I just published a book last September, which I'm just getting so much great feedback on. So I'm really grateful for that.
Branded, not branded,
So I
everybody.
sort of wrote this book as a roadmap for home service owners as they're thinking about launching their businesses, and
Yeah.
hopefully it helps them save a lot of money, a lot of heartache, and the feedback's just been really really positive. So you spend a long time writing a book. It's not an easy endeavor. I think I spent like 11 months on it, and you put it out there and you hope it doesn't suck and you hope people like it because you've been
Yeah.
looking at it for so long you don't know if it sucks anymore. Like you
Yeah.
think it's good,
No,
but
it's
the feedback's been really really positive, and it actually, when it launched on Amazon, it got bestseller status too, which was pretty neat. So
That's exciting. Yeah, I got my copy. It's a signed copy, which, I really appreciate that. That was pretty awesome to get. And this is your second book that you've wrote, correct?
it's actually my fourth. The
Your
first two I
fourth.
wrote very early on, but they were really written for other designers. And
Yeah.
in the last book I wrote prior to this one is called "Building a Big Small Business Brand,"
Yeah.
and that dealt with a lot of similar things, but it was a little bit more broad in terms of generally for small businesses, not very specific for home service businesses.
Gotcha.
And since that time of writing a book, we have really honed in on home service companies as our primary audience of who we do the most work for. And I
Yeah.
just thought, there isn't a resource that's out there that really gives you sort of a playbook to follow as you're starting your business or thinking about business, or if you've been in business for a while and just maybe not seeing the traction that you had hoped, or realizing that maybe what you've been doing isn't working really as effectively as it could be. So I
Yeah.
basically took like 10 years, or the last 10, 15 years of everything I had in my brain about home service branding, and just dropped it in there. And, it really covers a lot. And a lot
It
of the
is.
feedback I've gotten has been, oh my God, I wish I had read this when I was starting my business. And,
Yeah.
just open people's eyes about how branding works for home service companies, and why it's so important to get it right.
Yeah. It's a great book. I've got lots of notes that I've marked in all throughout it. I know we talked a little bit about it, and tonight we're going to dive into some of those things that we talk about it as well. Before we get into that, now you mentioned a little bit about cycling. So how long have you been cycling? Tell me a little bit about that.
So I've been actually I was racing bicycles for probably the last 23 years, 22
Mhm.
years. So yeah, I'm a pretty hardcore cyclist. I usually ride about 6 to 7 thousand miles a year.
Wow.
And for the last, up until 2 years ago, I unfortunately had heart surgery. So that
Yeah.
kind of took me out of racing a little bit. And now I just ride recreational, I guess, but still a lot of miles. I just don't compete. But
Yeah.
prior to that, I had been racing for about 20 something years. I was mediocre at best. It's a very challenging sport to do well in, but
Yeah.
I certainly enjoyed the challenge. I enjoyed the training for it, and every once in a while I did okay, and I got a ribbon or something like that.
Yeah. Ribbons and first place trophies. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So tell me maybe something that's been going on in your life recently that you didn't expect, or maybe you did expect it. I don't know. Tell me something's been going on in your life lately.
Well, my wife and I just finished building a shore house
Yeah.
down in Delaware. So
Wow.
that's a vacation home for us. And honestly, that shore house came to be in existence because I had heart surgery and because I
Yeah.
survived, and I was so grateful for that opportunity. And I just realized and recognized after that experience that tomorrow is not guaranteed for anyone, and really thinking about some of the things that we had put off doing because we always thought there was more time. We always thought
Yeah.
that we had this opportunity to do it later. Like we could do it later. Like and then they wheel you into the OR and you realize that later almost never came.
Yeah.
And so I came home from the hospital and we were watching a lot of beachfront renovation shows, and I kind of said to my wife, I said, I don't. Why aren't we doing this? Like, why can't we do a beachfront renovation or something like that?
Yeah.
And we didn't really have a good answer to that. We really didn't. It was always like, well, we should wait, or, we'll do that later, or, and then you just realize that, we almost didn't have a later. And so we wound up buying a piece of property and we built essentially like our dream house. So we got in about a month ago, and it still feels a little surreal, but we actually named the house Seize the Day, like SEAS.
Yeah.
And that's truly, like, I think just a good reminder of, everyone's time is limited, and, make the most of it. And,
Yeah.
you may not get that chance that you think is going to be, down the road. I'm not saying do things foolishly because, but if you have the opportunity to do something today, just recognize that maybe you should do that today because you may not have it tomorrow.
Yeah.
It
I've seen
sounds
some
really morbid,
pictures.
but
It's a beautiful house. Yeah. Really, really excited for y'all. Seize the day. I like that. So
yeah.
I was going to ask, what's your favorite motivational quote? Is that it, or you got another one?
I mean, I have another one. I'm a big fan of Rush, the band Rush,
Yeah.
and there's a song called "Losing It," and within the song, it goes on to talk about. There's a line that says, "Sadder still to watch it die than never to have known it," and that particular quote, if you really look at
Hmm.
it carefully, it essentially just talks about being at the top of your game and then losing
Hmm.
that ability to be at the top of your game. And I would say for my whole life that has really driven me, because in as much as what we do here and the awards we win and everyone thinking kick charge is the best, and that's great, but it motivates me to always make sure that we are staying on top of it, that we never want to be complacent with our success. We never want to think anything we're doing today should be good enough for tomorrow. And that
Yeah.
song really speaks to that
Hmm.
notion. And it's about a writer and it's about a dancer who he can no longer write very well, and the dancer can no longer dance to her former ability. And so you just look at that and you recognize that staying on top of that peak is challenging. Most people maybe
Yeah.
get there quick and then they fall just as quick. And I sort of still look at the fact that better days are always ahead for us, and I don't ever want to think that we're past our peak or our prime or declining.
Yes.
So that song has really driven me, I'd say, my whole life.
I like it. I like it a lot. That's good. Man, that's really good. I know Rush has got one of the best, in my opinion, drum sets. Neil Peart,
Yeah,
if I remember correctly, is
yeah,
incredible drummer. So um, never got to see him in concert. So have you ever got to see him in concert? I'm sure you have.
yeah. I've seen
Yeah.
him about a dozen times, and he was kind of my idol growing up. And ironically, I always wanted to be a drummer,
Yeah.
mainly because of him. And I've never done it. It's actually one of those things that's a bucket list thing for me to actually learn how
Never
to
too
do
late.
drumming. So
Yeah, never too late. Jump on
Yeah.
it. I mean, you got a nice beach house. What better? Get you a nice set of maybe Elisis or Roland, the V drums, or Elisis has a really good set called the Strike Pro. I'm a drummer and a bass player, so the
Okay.
Strike Pro is
Okay.
really good. And it's got a good feel to it. So yeah, grab a pair. You can always throw some headphones on, play at the beach house. How cool would that be, right?
It
Right
would
there
be
on the
awesome.
beach, you have the beach out there. Oh yeah, I can see it. I can picture it. So I'll bring the bass and we'll jam out sometime on your front porch, facing the beach. I like it. Well, if you're tuning in tonight, be sure to comment if you got questions. We're going to be talking about branding tonight with Dan Antonelli. And if you watch this on the replay, we're excited that you were able to join us and watch this. I hope you get a lot from it. I was telling Dan, our client base at my office help is home services contractors. And so I know Dan said, what was it, 200 different home service contractors basically a year that you do branding for. And so this is like right in our wheelhouse. I'm telling you, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast tonight. So let's jump into it. I'll be watching the comments as we go. If you've got a question for Dan, feel free to chime in. But Dan, I know we've got a few things that we're going to be talking about. And one of the things really starting out with is probably one of the most important things is naming your business, right? Would
Mhm.
you say that's probably one of the most important things to branding?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
actually, I think, the biggest chapter in the book is on
Yeah.
naming. And you just see so many errors that are made from day one, and
Yeah.
it's sad. It's like, again, like I just hope anyone that's looking to start or even has a business today really look carefully at the idea of naming and what effect that has on so many other aspects of your marketing channels. But naming is just so important. Thinking about names that deliver promise, avoiding a lot of the common errors you make in naming, such as naming it with initials like TJS, heating and air, is always going to be really challenging to be
Yeah.
sticky in a consumer's mind. Last name brands also are very challenging. They just take a lot more time, a lot more money, and a lot of effort to get people to assign a promise to them. So, we go through a lot of tips on naming, and I just wish more people gave that a lot more thought when they start. But again, there isn't a lot of resources that say, hey, here's how you name a home service company.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of information about it either out there. So I understand why there's probably a lot of mistakes that are made on that front. But
There's a good book that could help
there's
you
a
out
good
with
book
that.
now. There's definitely a good book now. So, we talk a lot about just some of the challenges with some of those things I mentioned earlier and just giving really careful thought. Again, just that mindset of names that are sticky do really, really well. So the
Yeah.
stickier the name, the less money you need to spend to have people remember it,
Yeah.
essentially.
That's good. That's good. So stay away from
Initials.
letters and initials.
Yeah.
Stay away from your last name here, your
Hmm.
town here, type of company. All right,
Yeah.
very good. That's good advice.
Yeah.
So I know on page 26 here of the branded not blanded Bible, branding Bible, you talk about the brand wheel. So this one was very intriguing, and this is one of a few pages that I dog-eared here. So talk about how branding is like a wheel and how you've got this. I'm going to show a quick visual here. And so the branding wheel, where you've got your logo in the middle. And again, I shared just this specific page on our social media. You go check it out. But above all, go buy the book, Branded, Not Blended. So talk about the branding wheel here.
So the idea behind that concept is just to try to distill the idea of a brand as simply as possible, right?
Yeah.
So people make brand and branding out to be almost more complex than it really is, right? So for us, we look at brand as a wheel. So all those elements around the wheel, your graphics for your vehicle, your uniforms, your website, your social media voice, those are all the things that comprise the brand. But in the center of that wheel is a hub, and the logo really starts how you build that wheel, right? And that centerpiece, if that is not done correctly, then it's really hard to build a perfectly round wheel. You may get a couple of elements right, but maybe that wheel isn't as round as it could be. And what does that translate into? is you can obviously move a wheel that's not perfectly round. It just requires a lot more effort, and effort is essentially the same as money, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people, a lot of home service companies do amazingly well with really poor brands. The way that they get around it is they just spend a lot more money than they need to.
Yeah.
So you might look at some of these big companies with there's a lot of big companies with really bad brands.
Yeah.
And you might say, well, how'd they get so big? And you look at their spend, their ad spend as a percentage of revenue, and those are the guys that are in the 10 to 12 to 15% spending on advertising. And
Hmm.
where we want our clients to live in general is less than 5%, and that's
Wow.
where a lot of our clients do in fact live, and they're seeing double and triple digit growth. So you say,
Yeah.
well, it sort of flies in the face of the traditional wisdom that you've got to
Yeah.
be spending 10% or more to grow.
Yep.
And I always say, yeah, well, the weaker the brand, the more money you need to spend to market it. So that center of that wheel, get that right, because it's going to be so hard to get the wheel itself to turn properly if you don't
Yeah.
have that foundation done correctly.
Wow. That's good. So your logo is very important. So name is top, logo is going to be probably second then in your opinion
Yeah,
as being very
yeah.
important. All right, so let's talk about some of your brands and your logos. Behind you, I see several very popular, very well-known brands in the home services world. Give me a couple, three that maybe some of our listeners have heard of. That a lot of ours are appliance repair, so maybe some appliance repair companies as well.
hmm Well, I would say the most famous brand that we've created is for Gettle. So
Yeah,
Gettle Air Conditioning.
Ken
I think
Goodrich.
they're
Yeah,
the largest heating and air company in the country, maybe the
hmm
world. I'm not exactly
at this
sure,
point, yeah,
but they're certainly up there
yeah,
as one that people recognize. Um, Timo's Heating and Air in Palm Springs is another company that we've done the branding for. They were one of the first home service companies that we branded in the heating and air space. Grasshopper Heating and Air is
yeah,
another company that we just did the branding for about 2 years ago, run by Amanda Triolo in
yeah.
Albany, New York. And oh my God, she's just crushing it. I
So
mean, she
let's,
had an initial base brand like we talked about. I think it was called PCM Mechanical.
yeah,
I think, and her business was affected during COVID. She had done about maybe 100,000 or less of residential sales and maybe 500,000 in commercial, and then they shut down commercial. So she needed to pivot, and she had reached out to me about rebranding, and I said, I can't help you unless you change the name,
yeah,
because I knew it just wasn't going to work. And so we changed the name to Grasshopper. And there's a story behind the Grasshopper, and why that's such a great brand name, because Grasshoppers only move forward.
yep,
And then the tagline came about, that whole notion of moving forward, and the tagline is "Forward is a way of life."
yeah,
And I'm speaking at an event actually for Profit Rocket next month, and I was putting some video together of some of her people at some of their different events, and the culture that has spurred, right? What came out of that, it's just amazing.
yeah,
And she's on pace, I think this year, it's a little over 2.5 years later, to now do almost 20 million in revenue. So she
yeah,
went from 100 to 20 million in revenue in Albany, of all places, right? It's
yeah,
nothing, I'm not bashing Albany, I'm just saying it's not like where you would expect to be generating that kind of revenue from almost
yeah,
nothing, right? So that is one thing too, that people don't really understand, how the benefit of the brand and how it affects culture, how it affects leadership, how it affects recruitment. Believe me, she doesn't have a recruitment problem.
yeah,
She's got more of a problem that the people come into her office all the time looking for jobs, and like, so it's just been an amazing story, that particular brand, and she's just an
yeah.
amazing operator and owner, one of the smartest people I know in that space, and honestly, I think she'll go down as one of the greatest operators that ever existed in this space. She's just a rock star.
Yeah. Are you able to, can you share the very, when we did our pre-podcast interview, you talked a little bit about how, where she was at when she started. Are you able to share that part of it?
Like the original
The financial
revenue,
part of
or
it? Yeah, yeah, the financial part of
yeah,
it, or where she was at?
yeah, she was under 100,000 in revenue
Yeah,
on residential sales, and she's grown residential only to almost 20 right now.
to 20. Remember you were
Yeah.
saying she was down to basically a very, thin checking account, and,
Oh, as far as
yeah,
that part,
yeah.
yes.
I
So,
didn't know if you could share that
to
part or not.
me, what makes her an even, more badass person is she literally spent her last dollars with us.
Yeah,
And I didn't know it at the time, but she put the last bit of money that she had into this rebrand with us. And
yeah,
she was all in. Like, if this didn't work, she was done. She was out of the business, and that was the end of the story.
yeah,
And so, again, there's just something to be said for someone back against the wall, going 100% totally in, and being so vested in us. I mean, it was just a great honor that she trusted so much in us, and
yeah,
and that honestly is something too that we look at that responsibility as being sacred. We're playing with the livelihoods of the people who hire us, so
yeah,
we had better know what we're doing. I think that's one of the things that sometimes upsets me about the design world, and even some of the people that are selling logos or selling branding or trying to sell branding, is that a lot
yeah,
of them sadly are not qualified to be doing that. And so it blows my mind sometimes, because I'm just thinking, you are literally playing with their livelihood, and and you shouldn't be. Like, you're not
yeah,
qualified to be doing that. And it kind of makes me upset sometimes, because I want to give everyone the best opportunity to succeed. So even the book, I think sometimes some people can't afford us. Like, I totally understand that, but at least the book will help you understand what you should be looking at, like what you
yeah.
should know about this, because you're trusting someone, to do this for you. You would think that they should know. But I mean, listen, Jason, you drive down the road, you see a lot of truck wraps. Half
Yeah.
those truck wraps are not doing what they should be doing for that business owner. And he doesn't know, or she doesn't know. That's not their job. That's like me trying to figure out how to run a line set in my attic. I
Yeah,
don't know. I don't know
yeah,
if it's a broken capacitor. I don't know what it is. That's not my world,
yeah.
right? But you would think that the people selling it should have a better understanding of it. So she was all in. I mean, it's just an amazing story. I
I,
think it's just so cool what she's been able to accomplish.
I know you have tons of success stories, but she always pops out. I've never met her personally. We've talked via, Messenger and Facebook and stuff, and,
Hmm.
she sent me one of her, shirts with the brand on there, and she seems so down to earth. And like you said, the fact that she trusted you with her last amount, and look what's happened for her. That's just
Yeah.
an incredible story. Incredible story.
Yeah.
So you touched briefly on culture. If you want to use her an example, great. Or if you want to talk about somebody else, but I know culture in branding is one of the things that we were discussing in our pre-podcast. And so let's talk a little bit about. I don't think too many people kind of really equate branding and culture, but they really do. They're married very well if done right. So let's talk a little bit about culture and branding.
Yeah. So it's funny, because no one comes to us and they say, "Hey, we love your work. We want to hire you to redo our branding so we can have a better culture." Like,
Yeah,
no one ever says that to
yeah,
us. But what they find is, after that process, the culture really improves. That they find the employees are so much more vested in the company. They want to wear the new swag. They see the visual, the mission statements on the wall wraps. They see the new trucks. They're excited that they're going to drive this new branded vehicle. They're proud to wear the uniform. So you look at a lot of recruitment problems sometimes too, and recruitment problems sometimes are directly related to poor branding, because if you're a prospective employee and you look at what the culture looks like, and the culture is defined of a number of things. It's not just
oh,
pretty
yeah,
billboards. It's not just pretty truck wraps. There's
yeah,
obviously a lot more that goes into it. But if you look at those visuals and they're not exciting to you, it doesn't look progressive to you, it looks stale, it looks dated,
yeah,
then why do I want to go there? But
yeah,
you walk into Amanda's facility at Grasshopper. And oh my God, you're just like,
Yeah.
wow, like this is an HVAC company. Like this is
Everywhere you
crazy
look.
what it looks like, you know.
Yeah.
It's again, it's not just the branded wall wraps. It's the culture.
Yeah.
It's the team building that they do. It's the leadership that she's put together. And so, you know, you have to recognize too that not only does the brand function for the people you are selling home services to, it has to also function for the people who are internal. So you have your internal audience as well, and they're affected by branding 100%.
Yeah. Very much so. So bringing all together what they see from a social media, again, going back to the brand wheel. I mean, it just, you lined it up perfectly in your book. What they see on social media, even hiring people. You know, we've had, I think just Saturday alone, I put out a post. We get 24 applications just on Saturday alone for CSRs. And it just amazed me because we used to have a really big struggle on trying to get people to apply. And now it's just as simple as, hey, when we're hiring, we put out a post and people are seeing everything equate together. So that branding wheel is really coming together. And we don't have truck reps because, you know, we don't need it as my office help, but it's the social media aspect. Like you said, everything what people are seeing. So speaking of truck wraps, I know there's been this huge emphasis on truck wraps in the last decade. You actually, I think you even said that in your book. A more significant emphasis has been placed on truck wraps in the last decade. So, truck wraps, websites. Let's talk about those things a little bit. I know you guys, you design websites as well. So, I always love seeing your posts on social media because I can tell that you're somebody who is very proud of the work that your team and you put out. So let's talk about some of the designs you've come up with. Is just, it's really impressive. Some of them, they're just like really out there, and some of them are just like, oh yeah, that makes sense for that company. How do you come up with some of that? Talk about some of your truck wraps.
I mean, listen, I am blessed to have like five of the best brand people on staff in the country. So I know a lot of people think it's me creating every single brand that comes out the door here, but I definitely cannot do that. But we have such an amazing team, and these guys, there's like I said, there's five of them, and they just collaborate, and sometimes like they just come up with some really really neat ideas. But what's nice, and I think as we've grown and added more staff in that specific discipline, and it's a very very unique discipline. Like traditional graphic designers are not brand people. They can sometimes do things somewhat in the realm, but that's not really their expertise. Okay,
Yeah.
so finding someone that's very specific about how to create logos, how to implement logos on a vehicle, which is obviously a huge thing for us, is very rare. But we have these guys, and you know, we have a Slack channel that we all share, and things get posted up there, and you know, within the course of a few minutes, there's four or five of us engaging on this concept and then just making it better. So when it was me and maybe just one of my guys, you know, I'm not saying the stuff wasn't good, but now it's just so much better because we feed off one another. You know, like, oh, what about if we did this? And then somebody would sketch up something really quick and post it to the channel, and then another person will add something. Hey, let's add this to it, and then like suddenly, like we're building something really really cool. And
Yeah.
the nice thing is for the most part, clients really give us a lot of latitude. You know, they give us a lot of creativity. They're not trying to make us work in a very very small box, so to speak, and they want us to think outside of that box. And so we've presented some really kind of seemingly crazy ideas, and sometimes I wonder as I'm pitching it, I'm like, there's no way that they're going to go for this. Like this is way too far out there. Like they're not going to get it. And then they're like, Dan, do you think we should do this? And I'm like, yeah, we should definitely do that. And I'm like, all right, well, you know, you're the expert, you know? And so it's been really cool. And then of course they never look back, you know, they're always like, oh my God, thank God I listened to you. Like, this has been amazing. But it's one of those things too, where you know, I talk a little bit about in the book too, as far as even just, you know, designed by committee and why that's a bad thing. You know, committees don't dare, you know, they want to follow that safe pathway. And sometimes we have that. I mean, you know, it's not every single one that we have 100% latitude. Like, and obviously we want our clients to like their brands, but when they start involving a ton of people into that decision making process, at the end when we're done, it's never as good as what it was before it got to the committee,
Yeah.
so to speak. So you're also dealing with people on the committee who aren't brand people. So the safe thing to do is to brand like you think everyone else brands, right? So as soon as you start going towards safe, then you start driving towards fitting in instead of standing out. So,
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the clients that really trust us, that really give us latitude, and then the results just really speak for themselves subsequently. And they're just
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I'm so glad we did this.
Well, there's several times Shane and I, we travel a lot for business and for personal. And there's been a few times, I can't remember. There was one time I was down in Florida. I think I texted you and I was like, hey, is this one of your brands? And you're like, yep, that sure is. And it was a water filtration company, I think it was. And then we were just in Indianapolis. I think it was Dugan Air. I saw one. I'm like, yeah, that's got to be it.
He was one of those guys where I'm like, it's a big head, like a big leprechaun head.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is too far. Like, it had plaid, it had that pattern underneath. I'm like, I don't know if he's going to go for this.
Yeah.
And oh my God, he is crushing it. Like, he is doing so well. And he had that old truck wrap and brand that was very safe. It was the condenser unit on the green grass with the blue sky. His truck is in there, but I don't think his old one is. But it felt so disruptive. And now they've really embraced it. And we came up with a tagline for him, which was premium service, no shenanigans. Right? So it has just worked so well for him. And like I said, I was just so grateful that he'd let us do it. Like, I was like, he's not going to let us do this.
And it's not just the truck wraps. It's you guys design billboards, you design the shirts. I mean, you do it as a whole package, right? So from concept to completion, you do everything. I know I've seen you guys as billboards out there as we're traveling, and it's just, you always know this has got to be a kick charge design. It has to be. I know there's been some others out there that's tried to replicate it. They don't even come close. You know when it's a kick charge design for sure.
Yeah.
So, okay. So talk about a little bit with the concept to completion, right? So I know sometimes it's probably just takes a few weeks. Maybe it takes a few months. How does that happen? How does that work? I mean, somebody gets a hold of you. What's the next steps from there?
So once we're signed on to do work for you, we send out a questionnaire. It's a creative brief. We ask our clients to fill that out to the best of their ability. It'll talk a little bit about the company, what their future plans are. For example, do they plan to add another trade in the next, 2 to 3 years? Things like that. Because we need to know that. Like, I need to understand where you envision this going. Then we ask them about their competitors. So who are the top 5 to 10 competitors in your space? Give us their names or just their URLs. And then we research what those competitors look like. So I want to know what's in your market. I want to know what colors are being used. I want to know where the opportunities lie to do a color scheme that would be ownable in your space. So, certainly we talk a lot about, why red and blue isn't a great color scheme for home service companies, because it's just so difficult to own because there's a million other companies using red and blue. So we want to look at that. And then we do want to ask our clients, hey, what are the top, 5 to 10 brands that we've created that you actually like? And we want that feedback for them. And we want to make sure that feedback aligns with who we're selling to. Right. So knowing that our target demographic is a woman, right? She's the one making, I think, 70 to 80% of the home service purchasing decisions is a woman, right? So I want to make sure that the concept that we develop meets that objective first, right? Because she's actually my most important customer, right? You as the client is my second most important customer, right? Because I'm really designing a brand that attracts her. Not necessarily you just yet. Of course, I want you to like your logo, but I need to make sure she loves it, right? And connects with her. So we have that discussion. So once we really go through the brief on our kickoff call, then we spend about 2 to 3 weeks coming up with concepts. And then we present those concepts on actual vehicles, right? Because the vehicle is the most critical implementation of that brand. It's the single most critical implementation,
Yeah.
because that is the most visible representation of your brand in the community that you are serving. So
Yeah.
I need to make sure that every single impression that that vehicle makes in your community is going to be memorable, and deliver brand promise, which we talk about in the book. So again, brand promise is all about controlling what that customer expects to get if they were to hire you. So that's
Yeah.
the other piece, because you can make something that's disruptive but doesn't deliver brand promise. And you see a lot of owners make that mistake where they'll do something like, hey, I'm going to make my truck pink with polka dots. Everyone's going to say they see my pink and polka dot truck all over. And they will. They absolutely will say that.
Yeah.
But what does it say about what they expect to get when you ring the doorbell is the missing part of that equation. So if
Yeah.
I can control what Mrs. Jones believes about what she might get before she arrives, then that's how we win the game. And that involves everything from every single touch point on that wheel. So the website, the social, the call to the CSR. What is that signaling to her?
You beat me
Right?
to it.
And even speaking on that topic, like I wanted to mention this before about Amanda, when you look at booking rates
Yeah.
for Grasshopper, like you tell me, I'm gonna quiz you on this. What's a good booking rate? What would you say a good booking rate is?
So average, you want 85% or better. Really good is going to be 90% plus.
Yeah, she's at like 93% booking
That's
rate.
incredible.
So what that tells us is that before the phone call is made, there's already a very high level of expectation of
Yep.
what that service might look like.
Yeah.
Right? So booking rates on a well-branded company are obviously going to do better than a company they've never heard of, they don't really know. They just found the number on Google and
Yeah.
they're sort of calling around. When they're calling there, they already know who they are. They've seen the trucks, they've seen the website, they've seen the social media stuff, the billboards. So that's also a really good indication of that. And that's the other idea behind how critical that truck is out on the street, because if we can get them to Google the name of the company as opposed to heating repair near me,
Yeah.
then you'll need to spend way less money on Google.
Yeah.
And that's the other really, really critical piece of why that vehicle is so important to get right. And we have the data to really show when you compare unbranded companies, I'm not even saying unbranded, but companies with poor branding versus kick charge brands and what the conversion rates are on the website. How many more inbound branded keywords are happening? It's insane. Like we compared 25 websites that used the kick charge brand versus 25 that didn't. And it was almost a 10x return on branded keyword searches. It was double the amount of conversions. And if you extrapolate that, you're talking about around 50 more leads a month that a better branded company was getting in comparison to a poorly branded company.
Yeah.
So that's really what we talk about and that's why that 5% number comes into play, because I'm already in their heads when they need you.
Yeah.
And if I can be in their heads when they need you, then we don't need Google to deliver at a cost per click. I don't need that.
So really it comes down to you're spending just a little bit more having a company like yours come in and just brand everything. And in the long run, you're really spending less on marketing.
Oh yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. And that's why I say in the book that the most expensive logo you'll ever buy is one you paid the least for.
Yeah.
You'll pay more on your marketing spend. You'll pay more on recruitment. You'll have lower average tickets because the consumer doesn't believe there's a reason why they should spend more money with you. So how are you going to charge a premium service when you look like a fly by night? Like, I mean, I hate to say it's painfully obvious, but that's what some people are up against. Like, oh, I can't raise my rates, or I can't get higher average tickets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a comment from Mike Gittich, I think his name is. Mike Gittich. And he said, Dan is one of a kind. He and his team's work is more than just a brand. They get to know you and your team values and apply all that into something more amazing than you could ever imagine. I totally agree with that. All right. So I'm going to hit up on one last thing. So you have a page, and actually I see this quite often that you post 1,133% increase in revenue after rebranding. 137%. I saw one the other day. It was like I don't know, 2, 3, 4,000% increase. I mean, that's just like crazy to think.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And the
if
beauty is
you,
the lower spend,
yeah,
to accomplish that. That's the beauty of it. It's
yeah,
not like, well, yeah, they spent 15% and that's why they grew so much. It's like, no, most of these people are around 5%.
yeah,
And I know some markets are going to be hard to be at 5%. Like Orange, California is probably hard to be at 5% no matter what, right?
yeah,
But Jason Bueller from Bueller Air in Jacksonville, Florida, that's a very competitive market. And he's gone from 2.4 million to 20 million in 5 years on less than 5% ad spend.
wow,
Well, how does that happen?
yeah,
Well, everybody knows the name, everybody knows the brand. Stay cool with Bueller, you
it's a
know?
good one.
Yeah.
The 5% or less, that just baffles me because I mean, I've had business coaches for years when we had our electrical business, and it was always, hey, 8 to 10% if you want to maintain,
Mm-hmm.
10 to 12% if you want to be, growing, and that 12 to 15% if you really want to get aggressive. So that's amazing that you can get under 5% with a great brand from Kick Charge. So I love it.
Yeah.
Um, the book is called Branded Not Blanded with Dan Antonelli from Kick Charge Creative. And where all can they find this book at? I know it's on Amazon, but is there any other
Sure.
place they
Yeah.
can
You
get it?
could you could get it on Amazon or you could get it on kickcharge.com/books.
Or there you go.
And it's a little bit less money on our site, and you might get an autograph with it too. It'll be worth hundreds down the road, which would be amazing.
Well, this is one of my favorites. So what's maybe one final thought that you would like to leave our listeners with?
Um, there's a great quote from Roy Williams that I mentioned in the book. And the quote is overspending on advertising is the tax a business pays for being unremarkable.
Yeah.
So the more unremarkable your brand, obviously, the more money you'll need to spend on it. And I get that maybe you've been using this brand for a long time, and it's very comforting to you,
Mm.
and maybe it's gotten you to this point, right? But will it get you actually to where you want to go in the
Mm.
future? So I want people to understand that rebranding, first of all, is something that needs to be taken very seriously, and I want you to understand that it's not going to be easy. Okay, but when you're done, you're going to be saying we should have done this so much sooner. So the
Yeah.
longer you wait to actually address this, the more money you'll be spending sort of needlessly.
Yeah.
So I can't think of a single client that on the other side of the rebranding, they say we should have never done this. And that includes renaming. Like you see a lot of sort of bad press about renaming, like, oh my God, it's such a bad idea to rename. And why would you ever rename it? And I think this year we're pacing to do 25 renames for home service companies. And we've probably done about 50 already. And I can't think of a
Wow.
single instance where someone on the other side of that has regretted
Yeah.
renaming. It's always been, again, something that they wish they had done
Yeah.
sooner. So, listen, hopefully the book, can help a lot of people, better understand how this all works. Hopefully it'll help people save money as they think about working with another company in the future on their branding,
Yeah.
and sort of know what the pitfalls are and things to look out for. And, that's sort of the more people I can help. Like, I just hate seeing, companies that don't understand it, that are not maximizing their opportunity,
Yeah.
and they run a great business. They don't look like they run a great business. So if we could solve that problem, they'll do so much better for themselves.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. All right, Dan, we're coming up to the closing this out for tonight. And I always start before I close everything. I got lightning round questions. So
Okay.
I'll get you some music playing here. There we go. All right, so the lightning round questions, we're going to close this out. So these are just 5 questions I'm going to ask super quick, and you just respond with the first thing that comes to your head, all right? So
Okay.
dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Dogs. Okay. Mac or Windows?
Say that again.
Mac or Windows?
Oh, Mac, of course.
Mac. Oh, Mac, of course. Okay. Chick-fil-A or Arby's?
Chick-fil-A.
Okay. Would you rather see out of your ears or smell with your feet?
See out of my ears.
See out of your ears. Okay. Most people pick that one. Finally, would you rather spend 1 year at the North Pole or 2 years in the Sahara Desert?
I'd probably take the Sahara Desert. I don't like the cold.
Yeah, I don't think not too many people have chosen the other ones. So, all right, well, that's some fun questions here. Our future announcements here. Our next podcast is going to be September 20th. That's at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. And my guests of the night are Macy and Missy with John Maxwell Leadership. And we're going to be talking about fear of growth and fear of success and how to overcome them. We're going to be talking about empowering and entrusting your team as you grow and creating freedom for yourself as a business owner. So you're going to definitely want to join us for that one. And then I always got to thank my friends over at Encompass Parts Supply for sponsoring the show. Check out encompass.com to see all they have for your service business. And be sure to reach out to my favorite Encompass rep, Reggie Williams. His hashtag is Lean On Your Rep. So once again, Dan, I really appreciate you being on the show tonight. And go check out Dan's book, Branded, Not Blanded. It's a great book. Dan, once again, thanks for being with us tonight. I really appreciate it. It's been a fun evening.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me on, man.